Welcome everyone to today's webinar on teaching with total physical response. Total physical response is a technique that allows us to use movements and gestures as we're teaching English. And I am going to start today by reading a familiar Bible passage to many of you. And this is the passage about the prodigal son. So this comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. Then Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, 'Give me now the part of your property that I'm supposed to receive someday.' So the father divided his wealth between his 2 sons. A few days later, the younger son gathered up all that he had and left. He traveled far away to another country, and there he wasted his money living like a fool. After he spent everything he had, there was a terrible famine throughout the country. He was hungry and he needed money, so he went and got a job with one of the people who lived there. The man sent him into the fields to feed pigs. He was so hungry that he wanted to eat the food the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. The son realized he had been very foolish. He thought, all my father's hired workers have plenty of food, but here I am, almost dead because I have nothing to eat. I will leave and go to my father. I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against God and have done wrong to you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son, but let me be like one of your hired workers.' So he left and went to his father. While the son was still a long way off, his father saw him coming and felt sorry for him. So he ran to him and hugged him and kissed him. The son said, 'Father, I have sinned against God and have done wrong to you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Hurry, bring the best clothes and put them on him. Also put a ring on his finger and good sandals on his feet. And bring out our best calf and kill it so that we can celebrate with plenty to eat. My son was dead, but now he is alive again. He was lost, but now he is found.' So they began to have a party." And I love this story about the prodigal son because it shows us what God's character is like as a father. It shows us how, um, oops, it shows us how when we were still far away from him, that God ran towards us, that he had compassion on us, that he hugged us and he kissed us and he celebrated for us. And so, as we are using the technique of total physical response, this is one of the lessons, one of the early lessons in the Light of the World curriculum. We share this verse and we encourage the students to act it out with movements and gestures. So we will um, we will show the students when the sun was still a long way off, we'll do a gesture showing he was far, far away, long way off. His father saw him coming. So we show how the father is looking down the road, trying to see his son who is a long way off. And the father saw him coming and felt sorry for him. And we can do a face that shows compassion. And he ran to him, okay? And we can do the movements to show we are running. He hugged him and he kissed him. And so those are very physical ways to act out the story that we can do and then have our students repeat. And you may have already been using these techniques in your teaching. And we often do this naturally as teachers. But today we're going to talk about why this technique is important and how it helps our students. So I am going to, let's see. I'm going to go into the full screen view so you can see this. Can everybody still see me and see the screen? Okay, thank you. So total physical response is a language teaching technique that was created by Dr. James J. Asher. And it involves using physical movement to react to verbal input. This mimics the way that babies learn to speak, and it's a fun way to learn that lowers stress. The purpose of total physical response is to create a link in your brain between speech and action to boost language and vocabulary learning. And so there's a story that my father loves to tell. He often talks about when I was a baby, I was a toddler, so I could walk, but I couldn't really talk much. I was very young, maybe 2 years old or so. And my dad was fixing something around the house because my dad is always fixing things around the house. And he said to me, kind of as a joke, because he didn't think I would really understand, he said, "Hey, Melina, would you go over to my toolbox and grab the yellow screwdriver and bring it to me?" And he was so surprised when I did. As a little 2-year-old, I walked over to that toolbox. I took out the yellow screwdriver, and then I walked over to my dad and I handed it to him. And he said, "Oh my gosh, she really understands everything." And he was surprised because I didn't speak yet. He wasn't sure that I understood everything that they were saying to me. But one thing that happens is that we are able to understand a language before we can produce it. So we say that receptive language, the language we receive by hearing it or reading it, precedes productive language, the language that we produce by speaking or writing. And so we understand things before we can speak. And with our students, they may not be able to say the word yellow screwdriver, but they may understand the word yellow screwdriver. And total physical response gives them a chance to demonstrate that they understand as they are starting to learn to speak the language as well. So I'm going to give you some examples of how we use this. A really simple way to use total physical response is when we are teaching action verbs. These are great to illustrate physically. So running and dancing and eating, all of those things are easy to demonstrate. And we can say to our students, even our very beginner students, once we've taught them these words, we can say, please run, and have them run. Please dance, and have them dance. Please wash your face, and have them do the gestures like they are washing their face. So that's a great way to start using TPR in a way that you probably may already be doing with your students. So some other ways that we can use total physical response. It's great to use for those action words. It's also really good to use when we are teaching emotions, like sad. We can make a sad face, like we're crying, or happy, smiling, angry, right? It's good for teaching prepositions of place, so above and below, up, down. And it can also be used for some concrete nouns like headache or scissors. We can make gestures and teach our students to make those gestures. It can be good for some adjectives like big and small. And we often teach those adjectives in opposite pairs. It's also great as we are doing common classroom commands like please be quiet, please listen, please repeat, open your book, be quiet. Those things, if we accompany them with a gesture, it reinforces the meaning, and our students can do those gestures as well, even if they can't say all of those words yet. We can use TPR when we are telling stories, like we saw with the story of the prodigal son. And when we're describing daily activities. So every day I wake up in the morning, I eat breakfast, I brush my teeth. Those are really good things to use with TPR and have your students do it. And TPR works especially well with young children. Young children love it. They are eager to mimic, and they have a lot of fun with it. But it can also be used with adults. So I use it with my beginning students who are adults, because it really can also be a fun way for them to learn and to practice and to make those connections between motions and the words. If you are teaching in person, in a physical classroom, you have a lot of opportunities to run around the room and move and turn. If you're on Zoom or Google Meet or using another video conference, you don't always have as much room to move around, right? You've got to sit in front of your computer camera. And so then instead of using our whole bodies, a lot of times we'll use our hands. We may use hand gestures for like walking or jumping because we're not going to be jumping up and down in front of the computer. So these can be adapted for whatever situation you are teaching in. However, TPR is not great in every situation. There's going to be some students that do not like TPR. For example, sometimes teenagers think that it's silly, it's too childish, and they are too cool to want to do it. Um, Not always. Some teenagers have a lot of fun with it, but sometimes they don't like it. Sometimes people who are older, who are elderly, they don't like the physical movements as much because it can actually cause them pain. So I understand with a lot of my older students, like standing up and sitting down and bending their knees can be painful for them, and that's something they want to be jumping around doing in the class. But also, it depends on the personality of your students and to some extent the culture of your students. When I teach classes with mixed cultures, often I will have students from Latin America and students from Eastern Europe in the same class, because in the Chicago area where I am, we have a lot of immigrants from those two groups. And I find that in the mixed classes, the students from Latin America, my students from Mexico and Guatemala, are much more likely to enjoy doing movements and gestures, games and dancing. And my students from Eastern Europe are more serious, and they're like, yeah, not doing it. So we want to do what is going to be helpful and comfortable for our students. We also don't want to use TPR just for the sake of using it. We don't need to do it if it doesn't add to the quality of lesson. So not every lesson is suitable for using TPR. And also, it doesn't work if the language is abstract, or as our students get more advanced. For our intermediate and advanced students, there's not as much language we are teaching that is conducive to gestures. So those are times that you want to be cautious about using it. So just for fun, I looked up the 100 most common English words. And I went through this list and I circled the ones that I thought I could use with TPR. And I saw off the top of my head, out of the first 100 most common words in English, there were only about 4 words where I felt confident that I could use TPR to teach those. So I thought I could do the number 1 and the number 2. I thought that I could do the word see, and I could do the gesture down. But a lot of these other words like the and of, to, that, be, have, those are hard words to communicate physically. And so, oh yeah, I also had the word no was one of them. You could go no by shaking your head, but you're not going to be able to use it with the majority of words. And some of you may be more creative than I am and able to do it with some of these, but those were just the 4 or 5 words that I would feel comfortable using it with. Okay, let's see. So the technique we do, we use a very simple model, repeat, solo technique. So first of all, if we are teaching a new word, for example, if we're learning the word no, we can use the gesture we commonly use in the United States for no. We shake our heads like that, no. And we teach it with the opposite, yes. So yes, no. Okay. First of all, I would ask all of the students to mimic the same gesture. So I would say no, no, and shake my head. And I would, after I model it, I would ask the students to mimic it. And then I could also switch it up and I could do the action and have the students say the word no if they're comfortable with that. Remember that receptive language precedes productive language. So they may not be able to pronounce the word no if they're really early beginners. And that's okay. They can just do the gesture. And then for the solo part, we would say the word no and then ask the students to demonstrate it. So for example, Zion, please do the gesture for no. So
No.
no, okay, good. Yeah, so she shook her head no, right. And so you can have the students call on students to do that solo. So we test the students to see if they really understand it by just saying the word without the gestures and then seeing if they can act it out. All right. Thank you, Zion. Sorry to pick on you. Now, another thing we can do, we often think of total physical response with big gestures with running and jumping and clapping. But it can also be those small, fine motor movements that we do with writing and just moving our fingers. So some of the things we might do is ask them to touch something. So touch your name on the page or circle the name with your pen, underline the name, point to the name, cross out the name, or match the two names by drawing a line. So those are other commands that we can use in total physical response, which are great to have students do on paper or do on Zoom. They can, if you are teaching online, you can have the students use their mouse to draw on the screen or write on a piece of paper, hold it up for you. So those are some other nice commands that we can use. Here's some examples of some ways that you can do this. So a very simple one for teaching vocabulary is to have them point. And so you can say, please point to the wall. Please point to the ceiling. Point to the floor. Point to your nose. Point to the clock. You can have pictures for them and have them point to the picture of the apple, point to the picture of the desk. If you have objects, you can ask them to pick up. So pick up the pen, put down the pen, pick up the paper, put down the paper. Open and close, open your book, close your book, open your eyes, open the door, close your mouth, close the window, open the drawer. So having them do those simple tasks is going to reinforce not only the verbs open and close, but also the vocabulary of the nouns that they are doing the action with. And as students get a little more advanced, you can give them 2 instructions. So please pick up the pencil and put it on the desk. Please write your name on the board and erase it. Please open the door or open the book and point to the picture. And then you can even eventually get into 3 instructions. And that can be kind of a game. See how many. Can they do 3 instructions? Can they do 4 instructions? How many can they do before they forget? A further thing that can help is using props and pictures. So if you have everyday objects around your room, like a blackboard or a hatchet or some kind of tools, you can teach them the names of those, have them point to them, and also have them do different gestures with them. For example, write your name on the board, erase the board, cut the wood with the hatchet, turn the wrench to tighten the screw. So there's a number of different things you can do if you have those props or even pictures of the props. And finally, there's a lot of games and songs we can do. So many times we will use charades games. And charades is really fun where the teacher acts out a word or a phrase and the students guess what it is. And then you can break into teams and give each team a list of words to ask out to act out for their partners and see which team can guess the most words in 1 minute. Simon Says is another great game that we use in our lessons where we'll choose a phrase like Simon Says, or we have one exercise where we teach them to use the word please, and the students should only do the action if you say the magic word in front of it. So please open your mouth, and they should go. But if you just say open your mouth, they should not do it because you didn't say please. So Simon Says is a fun game to do. And then we also have a lot of songs in our curriculum that use actions that are great for TPR. So as we're learning the parts of the body, we do the song head and shoulders, where they're pointing to their head, they're pointing to their shoulders. There's the hokey pokey, you put your right foot in, you put your right foot out. There's the song, Moses walked across the desert, Moses prayed to God above. And even the everyday song where we're doing the everyday activities. Every day I wake up, I eat, I do the dishes, and I brush my teeth. So those can be fun ones, and you'll find those right in the Light of the World lessons. So I've compiled some good resources here for you if you're interested in learning more and seeing demonstrations. The link to this is available in the presentation. And so if you're watching it on YouTube, you can click on that link in the description. And we have the presentation with all the slides from our webinars that you can check out. So there's some videos here showing children and adults using TPR, as well as the Light of the World materials and our website. All right, so we're going to talk about what you guys are doing. And so the questions I have for you are, how have you used TPR with your students? And how do your students respond? Do they like it? Do they enjoy it? Is it fun for them? Or is it something that they haven't really caught on to? So thanks so much. I'm going to stop recording now, and we will talk about these questions. Thank you.